Barflies and regulars. Have a whole handful of the dog. Prop up the architecture of your local establishment. And keep your balance as the stool becomes increasingly unsteady.
Because it's time to talk Tull to me. You know I love you, right?
You don't need to talk Tull to me.
Listen, I will talk Tull to you
Talking,
as much as I want.
talk Tull to you.
I'm going to talk Tull at you.
Welcome back, everyone. I am Omen Sade.
And I am Nick McGill.
Together, we are a wonderful mixed drink called Feckless Momes.
And guess what? This is Talk Tull to me.
A tipsy tipple through the tunage of Jethro Tull, in which I, Omen Sloshed Sade, and munted Nick McGill will sail the ship of musical conjecture 3 sheets to the wind over the Seagram's 7 seas, looking for the potted promised land. Glass in one hand, bottle in the other, we will get lit by the light of friendship. And though we may be lashed by the wasted winds, we will not stop until we have got the prog rock turned all the way up. There's a lot of this, Nick.
I'm enjoying it so far.
Every pint an album, every sip a song, Nick and I will imbibe the sweet draught that is the work of brewmaster Ian Anderson until we are binned, battered, and truly steaming with lyrical knowledge and musical appreciation. That's right. We are absolutely rat-arsed on the Tull juice right now, and we can't wait for you to get positively wankered with us on this your weekly fluteful snootful.
Wow. You continue to outdo yourself.
I can't outdo myself. I'm outdoing my other self.
Two more fingers of Tull, but you gotta give me your keys.
Friends don't let friends
drive Tull.
Drive Tull. Nick,
hey,
yeah.
Omen.
Yeah.
Today is the last day of 2020. Hello.
Wow.
Yeah, we made
Could
it.
not have come quickly
Any sooner.
enough.
Yeah.
By the time that our listeners are viewing this with their earballs, we will be well into 2021, and we will see what fresh horrors await us there.
Yeah, this is a mid-February drop, but we are recording well in advance while you and I are both off for the holidays.
And we are full of the hope that 2021 will bring
hope
and positivity that was not contained within this previous year.
Correct. So while let's veer away from that depression and
straight into another type of depression.
And that type of depression is
Marley.
Thank you, Marley. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
I put one too many glasses in for myself.
Oh, I thought we agreed there was no alcohol on the premises for you.
Yeah, well, also we're all out of turpentine.
Okay, as soon as you sober up, could you go out and get more turpentine?
You're gonna need more brake fluid too.
I didn't have any spare brake fluid, so I'm assuming it's not in the truck anymore.
I put kerosene on the list.
Marley, do not go near any open flames. Please. Just light up.
I'll just roll away now.
Dear goodness.
I don't know. You know, it's so hard to get rid of good help these days.
I feel bad saying this, but I'm so glad I don't pay for healthcare for our employees. All right, Omen.
Yes.
Speaking of healthcare, we've got 2 notes from the good doctor.
Ah, thank you, doctor.
To see the kindly doctor.
Doc Savage, we've got an email and a nice review. Let's start with our email.
Your emails, sir.
I quote, "Good morning again, gentlemen. Yet again, you're probably thinking, getting thoroughly fed up with me. But I wanted you to know how much I'm loving your content. At this point, you can just skip ahead a couple of minutes because it's just pure love. And we appreciate that. But I wanted you to know how much I'm loving your content. I'm so consistently entertained by the pod.
Hey.
I think my favorite moment from this section was your absolute shock when you found out what a chicken fancier was on the Mother Goose episode. Omen, can you remind me what a chicken fancier is?
A chicken fancier is one who preys on extremely young women, I believe.
Young men.
Oh, I'm sorry, young men. Young men.
Yeah. You can hear it in your voices.
I've known some chicken fanciers.
Yeah, I've been victim to some chicken fancier. You and I were just talking about a chicken fancier, in fact, before we started recording.
I am that chicken.
I've been a chicken.
Fricassee me and call me a chicken.
You can hear it in your voices. I laughed till Tuesday, as Bowie didn't quite say.
A beautiful baby, my burning desire, started on Sunday. Give me your heart and I'll love you till Tuesday.
And do you think that song is at least partly about Ian casting himself as a Mother Goose type figure, blurting out story after story for our amusement? Yes, I do.
I think that's a great interpretation. And that's something that we did not cover in that episode. But well done. That is a fantastic diagnosis of that song.
Yeah, why not have it be him? Why separate it from him? Yeah, I like that idea a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor.
And as Nick said, we also have from the good doctor a prescription for 5 stars.
5 stars, stat.
It could be 5 cc's of review. A review from the good doctor entitled Men Being Funny About Ian Anderson. Well, I think there's a lot to debate in that sentence.
So many questionable statements there.
Yeah. Quote, all the best pods come from love. And Nick and Omen clearly love the music of Jethro Tull. Even better, they don't always buy into the extreme seriousness which main man Ian Anderson brings to the band. They aren't afraid to make a little fun. Equally importantly, as they skip from song to song, in album order from This Was to jtull.com, they never come across as exclusive. They are learning along with their audience, rather than lecturing us, and their clear joy in doing so makes the 40-minute or thereabouts segments such a pleasure to listen to, genuinely a highlight of my week. Well,
thank you, Doctor.
You will be interested to know, Doctor, by the time that you hear this, the episodes have become rather longer sometimes.
That's true. The last couple have pulled back into the 40 range. It was the latter half of Minstrel that got really in depth.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've hit about 40 the last couple, so it's not too bad.
Well, thank you very much, Doctor, for your review. It is always a pleasure to hear from you. Never worry about writing too much to us, and that goes for everyone.
Yeah.
You can't write too much.
We appreciate it and love it, and if we don't read it on the pod, we will respond to you at least in the email.
So lightly.
Oh, gosh. You kept me hanging. I got really scared for a second.
I forgot how the word ended.
I panic.
Nick, do we have any other housekeeping before we dip our olive Twizzler into the song that we have in front of us today?
Can we talk about Olive Twizzler for a moment?
I didn't mean Twizzler as in the candy, because that stuff is disgusting and I hate it. I meant a swizzle stick with an olive impaled on it.
Okay.
One of those little swords. Speaking of which, Nick, I think it's probably time to play a little round of What Are You Drinking?
Pass the cup of crimson wonder.
I got to tell you that this 10 a.m. recording sesh time that we've been doing lately really hampers my what are you drinking, because it's always just going to be coffee.
I got to tell you, Nick, that makes me feel like maybe you're just not committed to the segment.
You're right. I'm also drinking water, but I've got a Saranac S'mores Porter.
Oh.
And a Left Hand Brewing Company chai milk porter that I've been saving for a What Are You Drinking segment. And I just blew them right here because we only record at 10 a.m. now.
Amazing. Well, those sound good, and they sound like a wonderful future beverage.
They're both delicious. I will be drinking them in the future.
Fantastic.
What are you drinking, Omen?
Nick, I am having a second cup of coffee, rather unusually today since I have the day off. It is a Lavazza Italian espresso that I make in my Italian cafeteria. And in honor of today's episode, I have made this coffee Irish.
Ah. Make it Scottish. In honor of Ian Anderson. You put haggis in it? Is that what Scottish coffee is?
Yeah, that is what
okay.
it is. Okay. So, Nick, with that out of the way, can we dive into the song that we are talking to all about today?
Honestly, I think we should.
And, Nick, what is that song that we have the pleasure of talking to all about on this fine morning?
We are going to talk the final track off of side A from Too Old to Rock and Roll, track number 5. It is From a Deadbeat to an Old Greaser.
Let's have a listen.
Let's grease it up.
From a deadbeat to an old greaser.
Isn't she bad?
I took an extra antidepressant this morning, Nick, in preparation to listening to this song. Wish I'd taken a handful.
Wish I'd stayed in bed.
I think off the bat, it's worth saying that this is, as I was saying to you before we started recording, this is not my favorite Tull song.
Likewise.
Although I recognize its artistic merit, and there is definitely a lot to unpack here, it is one that that listening to makes me just super sad.
Content-wise or music-wise or both?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, agreed. It is depressing.
Yeah.
The music is does not do it any favors. I take a lot of controversial stances on this podcast.
Yeah, like Warrior 3.
Like Warrior 3?
That's a yoga stance.
Oh, is that controversial?
You doing it would be controversial.
In
those pants.
I was gonna say no one told me to wear anything different. Yeah, and I don't like this song, and that's okay. Sometimes it's okay to not like songs. That's
right. And as the consummate non-paid professionals that we are, Nick, we are going to set aside our personal feelings about this song and do what we do best, Nick, which is to talk Tull about it.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe we'll discover a little bit more about the song that will make us appreciate it more.
I hope so.
Maybe the real song, Nick, was the friends we made along the way.
The real song was in our heart. All along.
Get that removed immediately. Okay, let's talk musically. Nick, what have we got here? What are the elements that compose this song?
Some crazy lagoob in the form of a pair of acoustics, a pair of doubled vocals, Ian singing his own bass line in those vocals.
Yeah, in a very unusual way.
You won't remember the long nights.
It's not something that we've heard before, and maybe there's a reason for that.
We've heard him double up his own vocals before.
Oh, yeah.
But not like this. This produces a very interesting effect that I think we'll probably talk more about as we get into the theme of the song.
Right. It feels like that underlying bass vocal is the thought process, and the higher Ian voice is the vocalization of it, and he's basically there's no filter, there's no pause. It's just coming out of a kind of a woe is me as he's thinking it.
That's great, Nick. I think that's very astute. It also reminds me, it's sort of the aural equivalent of seeing double.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We've also got some light piano in there. That's kind of the lightest sound that we have.
Yeah, and maybe some Glock. There's something that sounds a little bit chime-like.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure. It sounded like maybe a synth piano, might be a Glock. I'm not quite sure what that kind of light tinkly is.
As I listened to it more, I developed the opinion that it was probably the organ set to a glockenspiel setting.
That's what it feels like, yeah. At about 40 seconds, we get the only redeeming part of this song, which is Dee's strings coming in.
and black tides and white thighs itch up windows where blonde sisters fully fashioned a world.
Washing away my iniquities, blessing me.
But also not taking away the lagoob factor.
No.
The lugubriousness.
Definite lagoob. Her standard sweeping, beautiful, carry you away strings.
Yeah.
Then at, let's see, about 2:40, we get that god-awful sax break.
Oh, well, before that, Nick, we have what is actually scientifically provable to be the saddest tambourine in the history of music.
I missed the tambourine. I'm so sad. I didn't hear it over the sound of my own sobbing, apparently.
It's impressive. It's impressive.
Oh, I have to find it now. Yeah.
Jack Kerouac.
So then we do get to that break, and
Yeah.
with that break, we actually get a couple different things coming in. We have the saxophone, we have a little tiny taste of the electric guitar, and we have the drum kit proper all kicking in.
Yeah, and some bass. There is some discernible bass at that point, too. John Glasscock
yes.
stepping in. This is not that good rockin' war child sax. This is lonely man on the corner busking with his single saxophone.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And
Yeah.
let's circle back to that because there is some thematic sax talk.
Ooh.
Let's
Ooh.
talk about sax, Nick,
That-
that we have in the lyrics.
Yes, yeah. Musically, let's see what else. This is overall. Yet again, let's remember this is part of a stage play. This is part of a greater piece.
Yeah, hopefully this is the intermission.
Presumably, this may be the end of Act 1. This is Ray at his lowest, so we need to see the fall before we can get some sort of redemption in Act 2.
Thank you for taking us back to the overall context.
Yes. However, boy, what a bummer to end Act 1 on, you know? It is slow, it's boring, it's depressing, and I get it in terms of the theme and everything, but man, it's rough.
Yeah, in terms of theatrical construction, I think that no matter what your content is, I wouldn't ever end a show, especially a musical Act 1, with this kind of energy. Because
Yeah.
I think what you risk is your audience leaving.
Not coming back.
Not coming
yeah.
back.
Yeah. You can very easily pull off depression and your character at their lowest with a higher paced song.
And maybe there was a little bit of a reprise after this, planned
True.
To
True.
kind of end Act 1 with a bang, get them excited to come back for more. But, oof,
Yeah,
yikes.
she's rough. She's rough.
Even Long Day's Journey into Night, the most depressing play ever written, ends Act 1 with the appearance of the mother. So it's sort of like you get a shock there at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the lowest you can get. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Musically, I think that's pretty solid, right? We're going to get into lyrics here.
Well, just some other observations. It's
Oh,
in
okay.
4/4 time. It is very slow. I think it's literally like
4
60
BPM.
beats per minute, which is what's
Is
the
that a heartbeat? I think a heartbeat's faster, actually.
if you're in amazing shape, yeah.
Yeah, your resting heartbeat is just like boom, boom. That's a goal to have a deadbeat heart. Yeah.
A deadbeat heart, yes. A
Classic-
heart
classic
that smokes
medical term.
cigarettes in the nighttime and wears a lot of black.
Mhm.
Okay. So, I think that sums it up musically.
Okay. In terms of lyrical construction, without getting into the lyrics themselves right now, this is more of a spoken poem than anything. It is sung, but in terms of construction and rhyme scheme and discernible flow, there's nothing there. If you were to look at this, you wouldn't be able to see this as a song, aside from the fact that it just plods along with probably Ray's footsteps as he's walking, hands tucked in his coat, head down, collar pulled up against the wind as he's walking down the gutter. This plods along with him.
Shouldn't walk in gutters, Nick.
We know that Ray does this. We've documented that.
That's right. You can tell by looking at his shoes.
Yeah.
You're totally right. It doesn't follow the verse chorus verse structure that many songs do. It doesn't really even have a chorus. It does have the repeated line, but you're right. It's much more in line with spoken word poetry.
Yeah. Which fits in a little bit with the Jack Kerouac. That's a nice little homage there, but
yeah. So let's jump into the lyrics of the song. And I want to begin with actually taking us to the album artwork.
Yes, please. Let's tie back into that.
If you will all pull out your vinyls, your original vinyls that I'm sure all of our listeners have, or failing that, if you just want to look up
Too Old to Rock and Roll cartoon. So the cartoon is 2 pages. It's 2 pages, and you'll see this at the bottom of that first page. Because the 2 pages are I'm not going to get into it because we'll get it with Jesse. But hey, I in my image search I pulled up Creepworks' sticker for Never Too Old to Rock and Roll.
Oh man, I really
Ian Anderson codpiece, war child suit, leg up, flute playing, but he's got a skull instead of a face. It's so good, so good.
I want it. I want that for my birthday, Nick.
You got it. It's coming up.
Okay.
And it says never too old to rock and roll. That's the best part.
So if you look at as you said, the bottom of the first page of the comic that comes with the album, you see a visual depiction of Ray Lamas speaking to the Deadbeat, who is depicted as an older gentleman with a black beret pulled rakishly on his head, a turtleneck, a kind of an old-fashioned jacket turned up, glasses, and an old-fashioned pint in his hand, sort of that rounded English type that is traditional.
So, pardon my surprise here, as I have not looked at this art because I am a terrible podcast host, but
go on.
Ray is not the Deadbeat.
No, Ray is the old greaser. So, based on the cartoon, what we have here is that Salamander tells him to meet her outside the pub at 9 at a certain time, 9 or 9:30. Mm-hmm. So he goes into the pub to wait. And there, in the pub, he encounters a deadbeat. And now, when we say deadbeat in America, that usually means a no-account, good-for-nothing, someone who lazes around and doesn't work. However, in this context, it refers to the beatnik generation.
Ah, okay.
So an old beatnik.
Got it.
Someone from that movement in the 50s.
Yep.
The kind of predecessor to the hippie movement. And then they have a conversation. And this is I believe that most of the lyrics are the beat, the dead beat, speaking to Ray. And then at the end, we have a little bit of a repost from Ray.
I always interpreted it as going from a deadbeat to an old greaser.
Like turning from one into the other.
Yes, a morphing, not, it's coming from a deadbeat. Like words, advice, dialogue coming from a deadbeat to an old greaser.
Well, it is. It's the deadbeat talking to Ray.
Yeah. That changes my entire life.
So, Nick, again, this song is a lot to unpack. And basically what we have here is the coming together, a conversation between 2 generations of artists, which is really what the album is about. The album is about the greaser rock movement having died out, being replaced by punk, and then, this character who represents that older rock and roll movement having kind of a resurgence in his life, even though he's a bit over the hill. And here, in this moment, we have him being confronted by the even previous generation.
Yeah, right.
someone who simultaneously represents his future in terms of being totally forgotten, but also is his where his art movement was born out of the what came before it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where would he be if not for them?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and then the other thing that's happening here is lonely bar culture. Now, Nick, you have never really been much of a drinker. Is that correct?
That is true. I think that is safe to say. Certainly not in the bar environment.
Yes, whereas I, for many years, was what could only be described as an inveterate drunkard. And I'm happy to report that I drink much less these days. But I have definitely spent some time drinking by myself in bars. And there is this interesting thing that happens at a certain time of night where if you've had enough to drink and you're by yourself, you will start speaking to the other people who are drinking there by themselves. And this song, I do think, captures the spirit of that drunken, desperate attempt at connecting with another human being and sometimes trying to manufacture a shared experience that maybe isn't really there.
To find some purpose, to find an excuse.
To connect.
Yeah.
To overcome the crushing loneliness that is the human condition in the modern era.
It's out there. It's out there.
What's out there?
The crushing loneliness.
Oh, yeah, and sometimes it's in here.
Yeah.
Shut the door. You're letting in the crushing loneliness. But that's why people go to bars.
Yeah.
Often as my dad once said, he's lived by himself for many years, and he said, "Oh yes, I went down to the pub because I got tired of my own company."
Yeah. Yeah, that checks out.
Yeah.
That is very depressing. but yes, I mean very true as well.
But it's something that is very well established procedure. And here
Sure.
we have a wonderful description of, this older man, dare we say an old man, who has come to the bar and is so desperate for human connection that he buys our hero a pint just so that he can talk to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all it takes. You're buying my time with for as long as it takes me to drink this beer.
Right.
Yeah.
And then most of the song is the Deadbeat reminiscing about the good times when in his youth.
Mm-hmm.
From a deadbeat to an old grazier, here's thinking of you. It's sort of, like that's here I'm gonna buy you a drink just because. And then it starts you won't remember all of the things that make up the internal life of this old gentleman.
So it's the deadbeat sees himself in the greaser.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of sympathy or commiseration almost.
Yeah, I think that there is maybe the deadbeat recognizes in Ray someone who has ceased to be relevant culturally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is dreadfully depressing. Now that I think about it.
So
But
then
yeah,
let's get into some of this beat talk.
Yes, yeah. What is he listing here? What's he saying to old Ray?
So, you won't remember the long nights, coffee bars, black tights, and white thighs.
You won't remember the long nights, coffee bars, and black tights, and white thighs.
So, part of the beatnik movement was the coffee bar environment, these kind of poetry houses where they would all go and sit with their black clothes and drink coffee and smoke cigarettes and listen to each other read poetry, some of which no doubt was pretty dreadful, but that was their jam.
Yeah.
And the beatnik generation was all about, it was sort of a reaction to the horrors of World War II. And so it was, it started in the 50s, and there was a rejection of militarism. There was a rejection to a certain extent of capitalism. There was an embracing of poetry and spiritual journeys and the, dabbling in Eastern religions and philosophies.
I believe it was also Vietnam War as well, because that was 55. That started in 55. And the Deadbeats kind of went into the early 60s as well.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So there was a lot to reject.
Yeah, I mean, it was a political movement, certainly.
It was. And we get a little bit of that with the next couple of lines. I mean, so in terms of rejection, we have this phrase, with no mommies or daddies to reject them.
With no mommies or daddies to reject them.
It's sort of like, it makes me think that, these are a group of people who have so fully rejected the society that they came from, that, if you cut off your family can't cut you off. Sort of thing.
Is that a little autobiographical too, given what we know about how, and this is far enough removed that it may not be, but maybe it's still a bit of a wound for Ian of how his parents reacted to his going into being a band, I mean, which we saw early on.
At least with his father, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there is a certain inevitable autobiographicalness with all of his writing.
Sure.
Maybe there is a touch of that here.
Mm-hmm.
When the bombs were banned every Sunday.
When bombs were banned every Sunday.
So apparently this refers to a movement at the time when often on Sundays people would go out and protest the bomb, the nuclear program, war in general, and it was, like a recurring thing. Every Sunday people would be out in the streets protesting.
Yeah.
And the Shadows played FBI.
And the Shadows did FBI.
Is that not just a term for like FBI agents as a shadow?
I think it might be. I think that,
Yeah.
There's this implication that the state is watching you, and you got to be careful who you trust, man. And
Sure,
they're not one of us.
Yeah, FBI is established in the States, however, which is a really interesting thing to pull in here, because presumably this is set in London with the Kensington haze. We know where this is set, and yet he is referencing the FBI.
Certainly, but I also think that, that's FBI, even though it's an American term, probably, was used. It's sort of like when we say, like, oh, they're going to bring in the Gestapo. We know that we're not literally referring to the...
So the FBI just has so much of a reputation that it is a catch-all term.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And then we get into my favorite bit of the song, Nick.
Oh, best line.
And tired young sax players sold their instruments of torture.
And tired young sax players sell their instruments of torture.
There it is.
I've
Truth
never
comes
heard
out.
a saxophone described so accurately.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah. It is an instrument that was created for the punishment of mankind.
That's right. You stole fire from the gods. Here, have this saxophone.
Exactly. And then, of course, in the next line, sat in the station sharing wet dreams of Charlie Parker. Charlie Parker was, of course, the famous saxophonist who was instrumental in the creation of the musical form bebop in the 1950s. Mm-hmm. So I sort of take that from that, the implication that these sax players knew that they were never going to be Charlie Parker.
They still idolized him, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then for the sax, there's sort of a double implication that it's an instrument of torture, not only because it's a horrible instrument that should never be played, but also because when you idolize a musician and you want to be like them and you know you'll never be like them, it is torturous.
Right. It is. You self-flagellate every time you play because you'll never reach that that peak of ability, but you still push yourself and you still try so hard.
Right. And so it's how I feel about Chris Thiele.
Oh, God, yeah.
Bastard, hate him.
Yeah, so good. So good, I hate him.
Yeah. And then we list a couple of more artists. Jack Kerouac, Rene Magritte.
Sat in a station, sharing wet dreams of Charlie Parker, Jack Kerouac, Rene Magritte, to name a few of the heroes who were too wise for their own good, left the young brood to go on living.
And what all of these artists have in common is that they all came to prominence in the 1950s.
Yeah.
They all generally, Jack Kerouac especially, was, a major influencer of the beatnik movement.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote On the Road, which was almost the manifesto of that movement.
Yeah.
Rene Magritte was the surrealist painter who painted the bowler hat.
Yeah, among others, yeah.
He painted the This Is Not a Pipe painting.
I really dig his stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Really cool,
and
yeah.
I mean, he's amazing. And he was Belgian, and he influenced the art movement hugely. He influenced pop art and everything that came after him.
Really, really interesting connection, though, of what you just said. He painted The Lovers 2.
Oh, was that the one of the people kissing with the
With fabric over their head? That is the cover of, I believe, a Chris Thiele album.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So another thing that all these men had in common is that they died quite young. And most of them in the 70s. Charlie Parker died in the 70s. Jack Kerouac, I believe, died in the 70s, as did Rene Magritte. So, at the setting of this album, this fictional Deadbeat has already lost all of his heroes.
Yeah. Just quick amendment. It's a Punch Brothers album, which he is a part of. Their 2015 The Phosphorescent Blues. It's that picture.
Goodness.
Yeah.
That sounds like a Punch Brothers album.
Yeah. Good album.
If it hasn't got a 5-syllable word in the title, is it really even Newgrass?
No. Mm-mm.
Another thing that at least Charlie Parker and Jack Kerouac had was that they essentially drank themselves to death. Charlie Parker was 35 when he died. And
wow.
The coroner, based on the autopsy, put his age down as 65.
My goodness.
So, in a way, we have this. I mean, this is why this song is so hard to listen to, is because it's so tragic. You have this guy who is outdated, no longer relevant. All of his friends are probably dead, and he is doing his best to do what his heroes have done, which is to drink himself into oblivion.
Yeah, those are his heroes. Yeah. Woof.
And the line that is so brutal here, he names Charlie Parker, Jack Kerouac, Rene Magritte to name a few of the heroes who were too wise for their own good, left the young brood to go on living without them.
So death is not a final thing where everything stops. It is a transcendence, an ascension.
Yeah,
is it just a matter of they're living life because their life is continuing because they are famous?
Maybe, yeah. Or they, maybe there's some kind of dark philosophy here that they saw life as so flawed that the most noble thing that they could do was to die.
Die early and leave some semblance of what's the word I'm looking for?
Die young and leave a pretty corpse? Is that the phrase?
That sounds like, I don't know who that is. But I was getting at a legacy. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just listening to it, the sound is depressing. But when you break it down, it's like, why? What is going on with my life right now? Why am I listening to this?
It's hard.
It's rough.
To a deadbeat. from an old greaser. Think you must have me all wrong. I didn't care, friend. I wasn't there, friend. If it's the price of a pint that you need, ask me again.
Just a really quick disclaimer here. For some reason, because I am cursed, apparently, Omen's mic pooped, and he started recording through his computer, so the quality drops here. But it's the end of the episode. I think we all need a break after this slog of depression anyway, so we'll wrap it up here. We'll see you next week. What are we going to talk about and listen to next week?
The first song off the B-side of the album, entitled Bad-Eyed and Loveless.
Hooray!
Hooray, Loveless!
Yay! So excited.
May I make a request? Can we please play 10 to 15 seconds just to snap us out of this, of the song Everything is Awesome from the Lego Movie?
Absolutely, we can. Yes, I love that song.
Everything is awesome. Everything is cool when you're part of a team. Everything is awesome when we live in our dream.
Until next week, you don't have to spill your deepest secrets and regrets to someone at a bar. You can spill those dark thoughts to us in the form of a 5-star review.
Hopefully you don't have to drink before you leave us a 5-star review. Hopefully you don't have to drink heavily to enjoy our podcast.
Until next week, I am Omen Sade.
And I am Nick McGill.
Together, we are Feckless Moans.
And this is Talk Tull to Me.
Talk to Me is a proud member of the Feckless Moans Audio Network.